Hallie. We're going to get started. We have one more panelist, Sarah, who's going to join us, but she is going to be a few minutes late. So we're just going to jump in. I will repeat this several times as we're getting started, but if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box. I'll be monitoring that throughout the duration of the AMA and using that to kind of pose questions to the panelists. So anything you want me to ask them, please just share there and then I'll share with them as we move forward. So we're going to start with a round of introductions. My name is Dana. I'm the head of talent at Onramp. If you have sent an email, a text message, or done an interview with Onramp, you have met me. We're so excited to be partnering with Coinbase to launch their pilot apprenticeship program with Onramp. We think this is a really exciting opportunity with an amazing company in an emerging technology in a growing space. So there's so much cool stuff going on at Coinbase, and we're so happy to have some of the members of their engineering team here to talk with you today. So I'm going to just go ahead and pass it over to Mitali if you would like to introduce yourself and then pass it on to the next panelists. And then hopefully by the time we're through, Sarah will have joined us and then we'll get started with the questions.
Fantastic. Yeah, happy to do that. Let's see, I go by Mitali. I've been at Coinbase for a little over a year now as an engineering manager on the Coinbase institutional team. So a quick kind of high level understanding of how Coinbase thinks about clients. We kind of bucket our users into three. One is kind of retail clients, people like myself who are looking to put in tens of thousands of dollars into crypto. Then we have commercial clients, as example, businesses that are looking to get payments in crypto. And then third is institutional clients, so high net worth individuals, banks, funds, et cetera, that are looking to put in hundreds of millions of dollars to billions of dollars into crypto. That's basically my world. So engineering manager on the Coinbase institutional team. I will pass it over to Chris.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Chris. I've been at Coinbase for a little over 6 months. Similar in terms of duration. I work as a full stack engineer on the financial team, dealing with how your crypto like transfers from fiat to crypto and vice versa. But I work specifically on the tax team, which we are working to develop a product for this upcoming year's tax season. And I'll pass it to Amelia.
Hey, I'm Amelia. I have been at Coinbase for a little bit over a year and a half, and I work as a full stack engineer on the institutional team with Mitali.
Great, thank you so much. And when Sarah comes in, we'll pause and have her introduce herself. So again, I'm going to repeat it. If you do have questions, please submit them to the Q&A box. I will be monitoring that box as we go through this AMA and sharing questions with the panelists. So I see a question or two coming up in the chat, but please put them in the Q&A box so that I don't lose them in the scroll. So many great questions coming in. Let's just start with Adrian's question. For everyone here, what's your favorite aspect about Coinbase's culture that stands out against the previous places you have worked?
I guess I can go first. Coinbase is kind of like my big first tech company. I guess the biggest thing that stands out to me in terms of culture is that everyone is like super not only like super smart, but like super friendly in terms of being able to provide like their assistance whenever you need help. Coming into, I guess, Coinbase or like engineering in general, I guess it's kind of natural to feel that you shouldn't ask questions because you don't want to feel like you're bothering anyone. But that's not the case, and it's particularly true that people encourage you to ask questions, especially at Coinbase, and everyone's like willing to lend a helping hand. They're always encouraging me just to ask because people love just to share information and help others.
I can give my perspective. So I think what is kind of cool about Coinbase is like, I think the stage of the company that we're at, and also like the stage of where cryptocurrency is as a framework, there's a ton that we can do. And what I find very interesting is from our expectation standpoint, sorry about my dog barking in the background. From an expectation standpoint, we have very clearly communicated expectations of like what what we expect impact to be at every level. However, if you're looking to kind of grow in your career and have the ability to kind of take on more, there is so much to be that you can do, that it really empowers me as an individual to be able to kind of like dial up or dial down to whatever I want to do at that particular point in time. So from an impact standpoint and putting the reins in like my hands on how much impact I want to have, it is super empowering.
I kind of agree with Chris and Mitali. The things that I really like about Coinbase is the opportunity for growth. Obviously, the company is growing at like a huge pace, and there's plenty of opportunity to learn new things, to like mentor people, to like work on different parts of the stack. And the other thing that helps with that is everybody I've worked with is very friendly and eager to help you learn and kind of get you up to speed.
I'm gonna ask another Coinbase specific question. What does a typical week look like for a software engineer at Coinbase? And panelists, anybody who wants to jump in and answer these, feel free.
Yeah, I can start again. Question was typical week as a software engineer at Coinbase. Yes. So I guess for me coming to Coinbase, and I guess you would assume that it's like coding like 24/7. But in reality, I think Coinbase is moving so fast. There's a lot of products that are being built on, and different teams working on different things. So I think on I guess like day-to-day and a week-to-week basis, there's a lot of meetings in terms of trying to figure out the specifications of a product, trying to figure out what is going to be done at the technical level as well as the high level. But what I got to say is like in being a software engineer at Coinbase is a lot of discussion and a lot of high level meetings on what's going to get done before it actually gets done. So kind of like phases depending on where you at in terms of the product. I would say maybe in the beginning of a product lifecycle, you would be having a lot of meetings with product or design or the consumers of the product of what the necessity is. And that can go on for X how many weeks. And then after that, then it just goes to more like a coding, kind of like heads down, like does kind of the work. Aside from the more like software engineering type of things to do on a day-to-day, for me specifically, I do a lot of pair programming with a lot of other engineers. So I'm not working directly just on my product as well, or my feature, but I'm working on different parts of the different code bases and stuff like that. And also a lot of different types of meetings in terms of trying to see what engineers on other teams are doing. There's a lot of presentations on that. There's a lot of, I guess like kind of like not really courses, but classes to see like, oh, how can I improve performance on JavaScript? A lot of like learning opportunities in that sense at Coinbase.
Thanks so much, Chris. I just wanted to welcome Sarah and just give you a moment to introduce yourself to the participants so that they know you are here so they can ask any relevant questions.
Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here. I apologize. I was dealing with a little bit of a fire a couple minutes ago, but it's all resolved now. I'm Sarah. Thanks for the intro. I manage our early careers team here at Coinbase. I've been with Coinbase now just shy of 2 years. It's been a ride. I've seen the company grow so much. I've grown so much professionally since I've joined as well. Previous to Coinbase, I've always spent my talent career within early career talent. So I was at Square, and then I was also at Blizzard before here. So really, really excited to see all the applications come through and answer any questions. And yes, this is my favorite gaming chair. I used to have a black one, but this one I felt like matched my aesthetic more in the apartment.
Thanks so much, Sarah. This is a great question. How does working as a developer at Coinbase intersect with emerging technologies like Web 3.0 and blockchains, as opposed to front-end frameworks, for example, React, Vue, etc.?
I'll let Amelia and Chris kind of talk about their more personal experiences, but I can give a broader spectrum answer. So I think like different teams interface with different technologies. And even within each team, I think there are like sub teams that will interface more closely with, blockchain technologies, Web 3.0. And then there are some teams that will interface more closely with React Native, kind of more front end technologies. Two things I will call out. I think one of them is we aim to be at like the very forefront of any of the technologies that we choose. So one expectation that you can build is you will be using the best in the best in class. That is something that we definitely gear towards. The second thing, in terms of like the technologies that you want to actually be associated with, it depends on your team, but most teams have various projects that actually interface with pretty much everything within that stack, all the way from front end to like core backend, blockchain. So it's merely a question of like raising that to, the team's understanding and your manager's understanding. And 9 times out of 10, that opportunity will be created for you to do that. The other thing I will add hand in hand with that is at Coinbase, like one of the things that we're very excited about and focus deeply on is internal mobility. So, at the end of your 1-year mark, you basically have the ability to raise your hand and say, hey, I'm actually more interested in X or Y or Z, and I want to be more closely associated with that team. And we make that happen. And then the second thing is anybody within the entire company can actually think of an idea that would be a great product to be out there in the world. And we have a pipeline called Project 10%, where you get to pitch your idea to execs. And then if your idea is on the short list of ideas that we want to fund, we'll actually build an entire product team around that idea. So many opportunities for anyone to kind of raise their hand and be closer to technologies that they want to be closer to.
This next question is for, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yes, sorry. I just wanted to piggyback off Natalia. Natalia's, what she was saying in terms of if you want to be able to work on Web 3.0 stuff, like there's a chance for you to make that happen as a Coinbase employee. And I think as the IC versus manager level dynamic, Coinbase does a really good job in trying to figure out what you want or what fits your need as an IC level. For example, like if I wanted to, I came in as a front-end engineer. I wanted to work on a little more back-end stuff. And Coinbase and my team and my manager made that happen for me to become more like a full stack kind of like engineer in my role. And not only just something technical, maybe you want more work-life balance, or what Natalia was saying in terms of creating more impact for yourself, or Amelia was saying like maybe she wanted more growth opportunities. Coinbase does a really good job in steering you towards the direction to fit your wants and needs. Granted, the needs are the same as the companies as well.
This next question is for Amelia. What was the process like shifting interest and going into a boot camp? What was the biggest obstacle during that process? And were there any lessons learned in terms of experiences that helped your success?
Hey, yeah, I can answer that. I think that I might be having network issues, so please let me know if you cannot hear me. So I had learned like very basic front-end development in college as kind of like a hobby. And then after working in the field for in the field of journalism, after I graduated for a few years, I found that using those skills and solving problems related to front-end web development were just more interesting to me. And so that kind of guided me on like a self-learning journey to try and pick up more about web development, but I kind of hit the limits there. And so the bootcamp was kind of a way to kind of speed up my self-learning and get into the industry.
There's a similar question for Chris. What was it about getting into tech that interested you more than staying in pre-med? And what advantages do you see in this field compared to healthcare?
Yes, I think the first thing that comes into, or two things actually, I would say, is the problem solving aspect and the creativity that comes along with it. Being in pre-med and just medicine and I guess like science work, a lot of the work is kind of repetitive in the sense that I noticed I was tending to do the same every day, and it started to get a little mundane in terms of day-to-day life. So I was looking for something more fulfilling. Turning into programming and engineering, I think to be able to solve not you're solving generally the same problems, but they're uniquely different on a case-by-case level every day. And I think this kind of brings up a different type of I guess like lifestyle and work to my life in terms of just keeping me interested. And one of my lifelong, I guess, like goals or like personalities that I live to attain to is trying to keep on learning every day, whether it's that engineering or just about life or, you know, like human biology and how the body works, stuff like that. Being a engineer in this sense, I'm always learning every day, always being able to push the boundaries and limits of what I know or what I think I know and applying that to real life situations.
Thank you. This next question, I think, probably applies to a lot of people. So the question is, how are applicants from non-traditional backgrounds viewed in the application process? So this person has transferred careers to software development from a career in acting. He's passionate about programming and loves learning new skills, but worries that there might be some previously held beliefs about his ability due to his former career in the arts.
I can give some color considering I hire for these roles. Let's see, so a couple different things. I think what we care about is that you perform well in the interview loop. Previous experience doesn't necessarily matter. I think it matters to the extent that, you know, we try to understand what level of like the interview loop we should present you with. But outside of that, like, if you can show us that you think in the same way that, in like a way that is more kind of problem solving, the kinds of like characteristics that we're looking for, our interview loop is actually like very objective. We have scoring and rating systems to help us say yeses and nos, to remove biases of any kinds that may affect people to look into, you know, what the resume looks like and what does the past look like and things of that nature. The other thing is, I mean, this is one of the reasons why we're super excited about our partnership with Onramp, right? Where we can leverage them, or we can leverage Onramp, you guys, to actually like, you know, give us the quote unquote, no pun intended, on-ramp into finding folks that, you know, are interested and may have kind of slipped our radar. So both of these are kind of like going in that direction. And from our like internal logistical standpoint, we fight every day to make sure that we don't have biases. We include hiring panels, we include objective scorecards to make sure that we can remove unconscious bias from our processes, and then partner with folks like Onramp to try and increase like the pipeline that we get, to have more voices internally as well, to continue fighting this constant, battle, and making it more accessible to everybody.
Thanks, Mitali. Next question is about mentorship. Is there mentorship within Coinbase?
I can tackle this one. Hi everyone. From like a HR perspective, when we were just thinking through like our internship as well as our apprentice program, especially when we moved everything remote, that continues to be such a huge pillar of the entire experience. So in short, yes, there's a couple different ways that we do that. So of course you have the Onramp team, which will continue to support you throughout your journey here. When you're actually on the ground, you'll be paired up with somebody kind of a peer, maybe 1 year or 2 years of experience will be kind of like your intern buddy or apprentice buddy. And then you'll also have your day-to-day manager who will kind of work with you on different deliverables. Another thing that we also do is you'll be paired up with somebody on the university team that will do periodic check-ins with you just to make sure things are kind of going on track. Feedback is a huge, huge part of the Coinbase apprenticeship and internship experience, and even just as a whole when you're an employee. So feedback is constant throughout your time with us. Nothing should really ever be a surprise because you have regular one-on-ones with your manager, with your intern buddy. You have check-ins with somebody from the HR side to make sure things are going on track. And we also do ask that all of the hosts that will be having apprentices also have a little bit clearer idea of like maybe potential projects, just to make sure that alignment and like deliverables and milestones are met. So yeah, in short, a huge part of the experience at Coinbase. Yeah.
This might be another question for you, Sarah. Quite a few people are asking about Coinbase's remote first policy and kind of what that looks like. Do they have to come back in the office, and whether or not going remote has had any positive or negative impacts at the company?
How much time do we have to answer this question? So when I joined Coinbase, it was probably a month and a half-ish right before, 2 months-ish before COVID hit. And at that point, we were still very much like an in SF-based like tech company. I think only 4% of the entire workforce were based outside of SF. And they were primarily like super senior roles within the company. Obviously, that's changed a lot of things. And so we've had to adjust. So I always tell students that remote first does not mean remote only. So yes, you can be anywhere within the US, you can be anywhere in Canada. However, you can be spread out. Our offices continue to remain a thing. So if you do find yourself in one of our hub cities, so like San Francisco or New York, you do have the ability to go into an office. It's just not going to be mandatory for you to do so. Another thing is that we do encourage all of our apprentices and all of our interns to still build that cohort feel. We've just had to change the format, especially since obviously COVID. And so when you join, you're joining with a cohort, and we try to have like different social things involved. Something that I am hopeful and crossing my fingers and toes is that we will be able to do some in-person thing during the apprentice term, whether it's at the beginning. Most likely I think it'll be near the end just to see how things shake out. But I am a little bit bullish in that. We said that this past summer didn't work out, but it's something that I know is top of mind. But yeah, hopefully that answers the question there. Yeah.
For those who have attended boot camps rather than traditional computer science majors, how is working your first software engineering role? Did you feel prepared, and did you have the opportunity to learn what you didn't know?
I can speak for my own case. My first job after a boot camp, especially since I am a Canadian citizen, so I needed a visa sponsorship, was for a startup, and I was I felt very lucky to have that role. There weren't very many people for me to learn from, though, and so I didn't stay in it very long. I did get the opportunity to build kind of like a web application from the ground up, but then moved on after like about a year to a role where I had a lot more mentorship. So I definitely think that is something to keep in mind for your first role out of a boot camp, is that mentorship is very important. and can help you speed up your learning by.
Yes. Also, just to piggyback off Amelia's, my first engineering role, I will be real honest with you, I was really scared. First day on the job, first week on the job, first month on the job, I was having imposter syndrome. Like yo, like I really like just tricked them into me knowing what I know to get this job and role. But every day, like I think it's normal to feel that imposter syndrome. But I think as long as you keep working even after boot camp and after at your first role and just learn something little every day, a year or two later, you'll be like, man, I can't believe I was at that state where I didn't think I didn't know anything, but now I know a little more, but I still don't know anything, you know? That's kind of just like how I feel. So it's a long process and it's a long road in just this field in general, but I just keep learning something small every day. It's like what I used to say, or what I continue to say.
I know this was not technically the ask, but I want to give some perspective here from the other side, if you will. So I had I majored in electrical engineering, like think high voltage power lines, etc. for undergrad. And then for grad school, I had a traditionally like CS degree. Everything that Chris just talked about was very true for my first role. I had no clue what I was really doing. I was constantly like, pinging folks or like tapping folks on the shoulder to be like, how do I do this? And constantly feeling like, I just tricked them into hiring me, and I don't know Jack. And the way that I personally compensated for it is like I read a lot. I watched a lot of or went through like a lot of like courses and that were kind of specific to the tech stack that like I was closer to, and built that confidence up bit by bit. Did some of the same things that I had learned in like the previous week or the month prior to kind of build up my own confidence. And then, yeah, I mean, looking back, it kind of feels silly that I doubted myself. But even for folks that went through a traditional schooling route, if you will, the imposter syndrome and self-doubt is a thing, at least was for me.
The next question is, how does Coinbase organize collaborative work? Are teams split into different responsibilities? And I think there's also a larger question being asked about, like, how will apprentices be sort of like assigned to different teams?
I can talk from a team perspective because again, this is something that I do more of. I'll answer second question first and then the first one after. So from an apprenticeship program standpoint and how that matching happens, the way that we aim to do it is we ask for various teams to kind of submit their proposals for like what the apprentice will be working on, and then go through a lightweight kind of matching process to try and match up the interests of the apprentice with that particular project. And that would be the way that you would kind of end up being on team A versus B. With respect to kind of more longer form, like how do you work on project 1 versus 2 versus 3, through yearly and quarterly planning, we have all of like the projects defined. Depending on like the stage of the product, those kind of like get put forth to the team as kind of high level visibility of like, here's the direction that we're going in. And then if anybody has any like particular interests of being on a certain project more than the rest, then they would raise their hand and we would try and make that match happen. But outside of that, the manager would do more of like that project to person matching based on skill sets that they are seeing or you have called out as things that you want to develop, or who's going to be best for project X or things of that nature. So a lot of Tetris playing.
Yes. Oh, I think there's a question on how does collaboration work with the apprenticeship. I think the question for collaboration with apprentices is probably the same throughout the whole company. But I guess I will speak to an experience of my intern. Collaboration is kind of, I guess, more difficult now that we're on remote first kind of like environment where you have to ping someone. Maybe they might not be on the computer. You can't really like go over to your desk and be like, hey, you can help me with something real quick. So one thing I would say in collaboration is, like I mentioned this earlier, that everyone's like really helpful at Coinbase and super willing to help. And we'll try to make time for you amongst their like busy schedules. I worked with 2 interns in the past 6 months, and each of them were super scared to ask me questions. They're always like, oh, sorry to bother you. This might be a dumb question, blah, blah, blah. And I always tell them, I'm like, please, it's not like, 1, you're not bothering me. And 2, there are no dumb questions, because I want to help you succeed in any way I can. So just ask away and don't be scared to ask questions, given some research was done first and things like that.
I really like this next question. What are you most excited about regarding the future direction of Coinbase?
All right, I will go, but I will hope that others will follow. I think what excites me the most is that we're at a stage where we have really good product and really good revenue streams to make it a fairly mature company. However, because of the stage that cryptocurrency as a framework is and what it can enable, we still have just as many, if not more, exciting problems that we can solve as a newly founded startup would. Which means that, like, for anybody who is, product minded or creative or kind of more entrepreneurial, this is a fantastic space to be in, because you get to actually like work on product, develop product, kind of shape the way the industry really works, and also have like the fiscal resources to be able to actually do that, which is a very unique kind of intersection for a company to be at. So the TLDR is like, I don't know what the future of crypto is going to look like, but we sure as hell are going to be able to kind of like, go down multiple paths to explore and chart that path for, many, many companies and eventually, hopefully, the world.
I can also add a little bit. I think, just to echo Mitali's point, one of the things that when I think about Coinbase, like, we haven't been around for that long, and just like the sheer scope and the scalability that I've seen, and I've been here for 2 years, it's incredible. And we're really just scratching the surface. I hear it from students and from other candidates too. Is it too late to join? And I'm like, no, like, we're really at like that, like, just starting out. For me, that's something that's really top of mind for me. And it's kind of, Brian and a couple of other execs have kind of mentioned it, is thinking about like, what will Coinbase's footprint be, especially when we think about an international scale. And so we're slowly kind of tackling that one piece at a time. But if Coinbase does it well and it's executed well, like, the kind of like the limits are just really not there. And that part is like really, really exciting to me.
I can go next. I have kind of like two things I am very excited about. I guess like the first reason is kind of selfish in a way, that being at Coinbase and what it's doing in terms of like having all this impact and financial stuff to keep the company going. This creates a lot of opportunity for myself and from an engineering perspective, that I get to learn from crazy smart people. I get to accelerate like my career even further, and also being what Matali said, just work on interesting products and creating impact on that way. From a wide global crypto Coinbase perspective, I've been reading a lot of stories, whether it's like on Reddit or Google, about how crypto has changed a lot of people's lives. There's this one story about how I was reading about this, I guess it's graphic designer from a third world country. He or she gets paid in crypto, and then he or she like makes more money than they do at their original job within their area locally, and how they're able to pay for more things, and how they're just able to invest more money through the blockchain technology rather than through their country's fiat. And just like reading small stuff like that, and even though I'm not directly having a change in that, but like indirectly in type of way, kind of just like, whoa, like I'm part of this kind of industry and this change that's coming onto the world, and it just kind of like feels good just to be a part of, you know.
The next question is, how do your teams balance the high growth nature of a startup with making time for mentoring and building up skills of junior developers? A similar question is, just how is learning and growth encouraged at Coinbase?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, how is learning and growth encouraged at Coinbase? And like a similar question is like, how does the company balance like the high growth nature of the startup with building and developing junior engineers?
Yes, I can speak to this to kind of like a more entry level role. Coming into, I guess, like Coinbase in general, it can be kind of like daunting if you're given a product and you have to like work on it by yourself, and you don't know anything about technology, whether you're using like Amazon Web Services or you're in part of a different stack that you have no idea about. I think Coinbase and does a good job in giving you the resources, whether it's documentation or whether it's a pinpoint person you can always go to. Depending, I guess, like on your level, you will be doing a project. I guess if you're more senior, you'll probably be leading a project yourself, or if you're more junior, you'll be working with other engineers. And I think Coinbase does a really good job of giving you the support you need to learn what you need to learn to be able to do the work that you need to do, as well as not overwhelming you with the amount of work given to you, if that makes sense.
Just to add to that, we won't be able to actually like make impact and have all of these products out if we don't have the right mentorship rails built into our engineering career ladders. So mentorship is actually like a huge component at each level that we track and rate for every engineer. So we align our values very, very closely to making sure that we're building a championship team, not necessarily just a championship person, if you will. The other thing that there are two other things I'll add. One is the most you'll be able to learn will be dependent on how much you vocalize what you would want to learn about, and then people will create those opportunities for you, in particular your manager. We care deeply, deeply, deeply about continuous learning. All we want to know at any point in time is what you'd be curious about or what you'd want to learn. Another thing that we facilitate is like we have learning and development budgets, and we have kind of like internal kind of classes if you will, that we sponsor. As an example, there's Go training, there's React Native mentorship, things of that nature, like programs that we run, around the year to enable people to continuously learn, to continuously branch out, to expand their knowledge base. We have Udemy business access and things of that nature. So many rails for you to kind of learn more. It's about how much time and what.
The next question is, what does the Coinbase's development cycle look like? And can you talk about some of the challenges and wins recently?
Amelia or Chris, do y'all want to talk about the development cycle? And I can talk about some challenges and wins at the Coinbase level.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Do you mind repeating the question? I think I missed it.
Sure, I lost it here. It was asking about the development cycle at Coinbase. What does that look like? And what are some recent challenges and wins?
Yeah, so for the development cycle, we work, at least in my team, we're working 2-week sprints where we have kind of a sprint planning meeting and go through the tickets at the end of the week for what we're planning to do for the next 2 weeks, and kind of look at maybe like what has fallen over from the previous week. Other than that, like in terms of projects, there is kind of like a development cycle with engineering managers and product managers where they develop a requirements document, and then based on that, we'll come up with a technical design document to work from for like larger projects.
Yeah, so really quickly in terms of wins and challenges, I think from a win standpoint, honestly, I feel like there's so much that we're pushing out day after day that it is it's hard to kind of like even call out a few of these. I think the ones that I am probably like most excited to see out in the world are, I think we're doing a significantly better job at onboarding assets. The reason why I'm so excited about this is like there's actually been a pretty significant shift here in that earlier on we used to be very conservative with the assets that we were onboarding to make sure that they were secure, they were compliant, etc. We've made a lot of those processes better and are able to release day zero assets or day zero asset support, which means that a lot more people get the freedom of being able to kind of invest in a lot more currencies, increased visibility into what is happening within the crypto world, etc. So that is something that is super exciting. If anybody has been following the NFT craze, that is overall a pretty exciting kind of direction that the overall kind of I guess business is going in. I'm having a little bit, I will honestly say, like I'm having a little bit of trouble kind of like talking too much about these things, but because there are some that are kind of in NDAs and some that are not, and like right now my line is blurred on what are the things I can and cannot talk about. So I'll talk, these are mostly like kind of crypto economy exciting things more than Coinbase level exciting things, if you will. Oh, also there was a other question around challenges. I think the one challenge that I see us working on pretty well, and it's showing promise, but it'll continue to be a wait and see how we do on this like long term, is a remote first culture. I think it is a step in the right direction. I think that internally, like, we have really good processes and really good infrastructure to be able to support this. That said, you know, this is a huge culture shift, and it'll take a little while to kind of understand just how successful that can be in the long term. So I'm super excited to see, you know, how all of this really plays out. So I'm keeping my eyes on that.
This question is being asked in many different ways, so I'll kind of condense these questions into one. What are some qualities you find desirable in a junior engineer, or what would make a junior developer stand out in your opinion? And sort of to tag onto that question, what skills and attributes are valued in Coinbase engineering beyond the hard coding skills?
I can speak to the first question in terms of traits of, I guess, a junior, apprenticeship, or intern, or just engineer in general. For me personally, in a younger engineer, I love to see curiosity and like willingness to learn, and always being like open and having an open mind and stuff. Because it's always nice to see someone who's always asked like, oh, what does that mean? Can you explain more about that? Just going back on what I was talking about, Coinbase employees in general, and just me in general, like, love to explain things, right? Because one, always love to help out others, and two, if I explain something, maybe I understand a little more. So having that like natural curiosity to kind of learn new technologies, and just being able to try to push that boundaries of the limits of their knowledge.
The next question is there diversity at Coinbase in terms of the software engineer's education background? Is it a mix of traditional CS degrees versus bootcamp versus self-taught?
I can take that answer, or I can take that question, sorry. The short answer to that is yes. The longer answer is, I think overall, the business that we're in actually attracts folks that have come in from non-traditional backgrounds into crypto. So overall, like, I think the characteristic that I think we attract and favor the most is like entrepreneurial. This kind of goes back to, you know, what Chris was talking about, like curiosity, wanting to kind of learn more, or like you know, defaulting to ownership and bias to action. Like, those are the things that we care about. Very rarely do we care about like what their resume history has been. So you know, Sarah and I were actually like talking earlier about this, but like, we were talking about who are the kinds of people that, you know, folks on this call will be excited to kind of talk to, and like will be able to like relate to in terms of experiences. And just between the two of us, from like the 3 or 4 teams that we knew, we actually like were able to come up with like 4 or 5 people just in like 2, maybe 3 teams. And that is actually like consistent across the board, because I got curious and I was kind of like looking, roughly speaking, into like the teams that I am curious about. Yeah, but we hire from non-traditional backgrounds in terms of you know, schooling experiences, in terms of like where they've grown up, in terms of geographies, in terms of all of these things. The ethos and the reason that we're excited about crypto is that it breaks all of these barriers. It doesn't suit us to have an employee pool that is traditional, period.
I think this question kind of goes along with that. That's probably for Sarah. Are there employee resource groups or resources within Coinbase just to connect and find folks with similar lived experiences?
Yes, we have a ton of different ERGs that have sprung up in the past couple of years. I also say that there is probably a social channel for anything under the sun, whether you're into coffee or wine or French wine, to be more specific. There's something for everyone, really. There's something that you want to talk about. Like we have hundreds and hundreds of different Slack channels that you can be a part of. Another thing is just around like the cohort vibe of the internship or apprenticeship experience. We do want people to still have a sense of like, hey, like you're still part of, like you're joining a company, you have a sense of what it's like to work here, like all of that jazz. But in short, yes. And in terms of like interests, there's one for anything that you can imagine.
This next question is an in-depth knowledge or understanding of blockchain technology a prerequisite for candidates? And before I open that to be answered, I just want to let all the participants here know that I'm going to be sending out an invite after this AMA to join a panel this Friday. We're hosting a crypto 101 panel where you can come ask any question, like specifically about cryptocurrency. So if this is a field that is unfamiliar to you, or you're a newbie and you're just not really sure what it's all about, it'll be an opportunity for you to come and get all those 101 questions answered. But now, for those at Coinbase, like, is that in-depth knowledge or understanding of blockchain a prerequisite for candidates?
I can answer this. I'm gonna say no. You don't need to know anything about crypto or blockchain or any of that high-level stuff. Personally, I knew nothing about Coinbase. I didn't even know what Coinbase was or cryptocurrency before I even got the job offer. I just applied to the company and then got the offer, and then I started to read into more what cryptocurrency is. I watched all of Brian Armstrong's podcasts or like his talks, and what financial freedom is, and that kind of intrigued me there. And also, I like to mention that I didn't read anything about crypto before joining, but now that I'm here, it's all I read about, even when I'm like not working. Like all this information is thrown to you, so you kind of just like start to read it and learn about it, and then it starts to become integrated in your life. And then me personally, I just read it when on the weekends.
All right, we have time for just a few more questions. Could you tell us more about how your performance is assessed as software engineers?
I can tackle that. So I can specifically talk about more of like the early career side. And then I'll talk and transition over to like how we do it for FTEs. So for our apprentices, as well as our internship program, again, like I mentioned, feedback is a huge part of the whole process. So nothing should really be a surprise. But we also do have formal feedback cycles throughout your time with us. So one at the midpoint, it's a very lightweight check-in with like your manager and your buddy just to see like how you're progressing to tasks. Again, we use the proposals as well as like a detailed agenda of like what, kind of like, it doesn't have to be so granular, but like what your general week-to-week plan looks like and how you're progressing to those goals. And if you're on track to get a full-time offer. And then the same goes, we have another more in-depth kind of review and look back at the end of the term, where we're really assessing like, are you performing at or close to that full-time software engineer L3 level? And then we use those two decisions to kind of come up with an offer recommendation and then move forward to an offer. So that's how, in general, how it works on like the apprentice or internship side. On the full-time, experienced hire side, we are a pay for performance culture. So we do have, again, feedback should be really constant. We have check-ins throughout the year. We call them like pulses. So like lightweight pulse, just to make sure things are going on track when it comes to like your goaling and stuff like that. And then we do have one in-depth kind of like 360 overview where you give feedback to your manager gives feedback to you. And then another cycle where we go through like promotion conversations as well as any kind of like merit increases, etc.
The next question is about the work-life balance at Coinbase. What is that like?
I can give you my understanding of work-life balance. The way that our expectations are set are to be as objective as we possibly can and to transparently communicate what each level, what expectations are at each level, and to have the feedback conversations regularly to give feedback on like how any employee is doing on all of those levels. We don't measure time and seat. We don't measure, how long you're doing. This is something Amelia can talk about as well. Is like one of the things that I keep saying is like, if it takes 1 hour to do your job, great, fan-freaking-tastic. If you're able to meet expectations, that is what we care about. As a company, we choose to not be prescriptive about most things. Work-life balance is yet another example of that. We want to put the power in your hands. We want to put the reins in your hands to make sure that like you're doing what is necessary for you as a person, because everybody's individual needs are different. There's some things that we kind of put into place to make sure that people actually do have time to kind of completely like switch off. So we have the concept of like recharge days and weeks where the entire company shuts off to allow you to kind of like fully recharge without, any Slack pings and things of that nature. Because in a remote first environment, it is oftentimes kind of like a little bit difficult to play catch up sometimes if you're, if there's a lot kind of going on. So we put, I guess, infrastructure in place, if you will, to make this more of a possibility or more of a probability that you have good work-life balance, but eventually like it is each individual defining what they need for themselves.
Do we have time for one more question? I love this one. The mission of Coinbase is super powerful and really resonates. In fact, this person did their grad school thesis about how innovations in financial technology can address wealth inequality. Does anybody have a favorite story or example about how Coinbase has improved the lives or created a more fair world?
I actually just got off a call with a potential with a candidate, and they live in South America, and they were talking about how crypto actually like saved their family from like really like bad financial outcomes and losses, in that like the currency that the area that they live in isn't quite as stable. The currency is going up and down, and there's corruption at play, etc. The fact that they're able to invest and partake in a currency that is actually like in more ways, more stable than any kind of fiat currency, because there's global or there are no barriers, and it's not immune to kind of like local politics, does actually, create if you will, like a good ground for individuals that are in areas that don't offer that stability. In the US, I mean, I live here, and it's easy to not realize how powerful the fact that this isn't tied to any local government is. So that was very interesting and very powerful for me to see, read, hear about.
Nice. And I have a small story too. When I was joining Coinbase, I was listening to all of Brian Armstrong's talks. And then this one kind of story stuck out to me because he uses the same story all the time, how he talks about Venezuela and Singapore. He put like two pictures next to each other, and then 50 years ago, they were the same. And then there was a difference that Singapore had more financial freedom. And now if you've been to Singapore or seen pictures of Singapore, Singapore is like this metropolis with tall buildings and skyscrapers and stuff like that. So there's like significant difference between what they look like then, between what they look like now, but they look the same 50 years ago. So that kind of just like stuck with me ever since.
Thank you all so much for joining us. To our panelists, thank you for your time. Thank you for your refreshing honesty and all of your answers. And to the participants, we still had 120 plus unanswered questions. So thank you so much for coming with such amazing questions. I apologize we didn't get to all of them. If you have any application specific questions, you can write to me at support@onramp.io and I can answer those for you. We'll also be hosting that Crypto 101 panel on Friday. I'll send those invitations out later today. And just want to thank everyone at Coinbase again for joining us. Thank you to all the participants and wishing everybody the best of luck in the application process. Bye, everyone. Thank you.